Alright, everybody. As you all know, because I've been talking about it fairly frequently lately, since it's been so, culturally relevant, at least in regards to, like, EdgeTube and the commentary and drama community, Sam Hyde and his, obsession slash, like, one-sided vendetta, feud against iDubbbz has led to this, like, extremely parasocial perception online among much of, like, the EdgeTube consuming audience that iDubbbz used to be this king of edginess online. He was awesome, he made the best content, but then he got into a relationship with this girl, or possibly even worse in their mind, he did this on his own. He stopped being edgy, he stopped being cool and awesome, and he became, quote-unquote, insufferable. What they really mean by this is that he just doesn't really, like, kowtow to the far right with his humor being, like, very edgy and very offensive, but keeping it insincere and sort of disconnected enough that some people could consume it thinking that it's, not a joke, but actually sincere. He wanted to avoid that, and he saw that a lot of people in his audience were taking his humor that way, and he didn't like that, and he grew and he changed as a person. A lot of the right does not like this, particularly the EdgeTube crowd, even the people that aren't even on the right, that are, like, in EdgeTube, that are, even more left-leaning in their political beliefs, but culturally, they lean more with, the air of things online that's more right-leaning right now. Anyway, apparently, just 25 minutes ago, iDubbbz uploaded a video, and he did a response to all of this drama and all of this, like, discourse. He stayed silent on it for a long time. I'm surprised he did this response, but, yeah. It's called I Miss the Old iDubbbz. I'm not gonna, like, talk it up. I'm not going to lead in. I haven't seen this yet. It's 25 minutes old. I just found out this exists. Let's see what he has to say.
For a while, I felt like if I changed my content over time, that people would see that as a reflection of who I am and what I value. But I'm starting to realize that that is a very weak and passive way to, run my channel and live my life. So I think it's, if I'm going to have the balls to go to Tana's fan meetup and say slurs at her and then make a video about how it's okay to say slurs, I think I should have the balls to make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made. So that's what this video is. I've realized that I need...
So this immediately will make it a lot easier to call out the, like, blatant dishonesty and people who claim their reason for disliking iDubbbz isn't political.
To be crystal clear about what I believe, so there's no room for ambiguity. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel, and I've also...
Oh boy, EdgeTube is gonna have a field day with this. I can actually, like, see already the tweets from, like, the drama YouTubers and the commentary YouTubers. I can close my eyes and, I'm having a prophetic vision. I can see them. They will absolutely dunk on him for being this sincere in a video.
Also created a culture of apathy and, I don't know, a lot of, like, cruelty as well. Like, some of the videos I've made have been very, not edgy. I don't think they some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel. So I don't want people to, get it confused about, where I stand. I have made some cruel, hurtful content, and
remember, one of the biggest criticisms from people that claim their reason for disliking iDubbbz now is not political is them saying that iDubbbz built his career on making toxic content that he now, criticizes others for making, despite not properly disavowing his old toxic content. Well, now he's doing that, outright and center. So what's the excuse going to be now? I'm curious.
Need to acknowledge that, and I'm really sorry that it's taken me this long to acknowledge it. The content I'm talking about specifically are content cop videos and videos where I was just generally criticizing people for very lackluster reasons, and obviously didn't have any accountability online whatsoever on my end. I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making content cop videos on, and I'm not. I'm a human. I'm a real human who makes mistakes, and I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on, but it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave, and it's not.
He's just speaking facts here, but he's going to get a lot of shit for it. Like, one of the big problems... all right, I feel like I need to commentate on this, and I feel like I might get clipped in this, because I'm, talking about something so relevant to this sphere. But here's my position on, like, the political leanings of EdgeTube, the commentary community, and the drama community. I do not believe that EdgeTube, the drama community, or the commentary community are inherently conservative, right-wing, far-right, fascist, whatever you want to call it. I don't believe that they are inherently like this, and I don't believe that most of them are like that at all. What I think the phenomenon that occurs that makes it so that there's oftentimes when discourse happens online, you've got Nazis in the far right and EdgeTubers and drama-type people on one side and, like, lefties on the other. I think a reason why you see that dichotomy so often is because there is one main thing that that every EdgeTuber, pretty much, almost every commentary and drama YouTuber, and most of the far right, at least when it comes to the far right publicly, they'll say they agree on. And that is political disaffectedness and insincerity. The idea that being sincere and desperately caring about making the world a better place, particularly through political means, makes you kind of it makes you something that I can't say on stream, all right? But there are a lot of different derisive terms that usually, like, start with care or, like, sincere or something like that and end with an already established slur, usually one for gay people. The far right, for a very long time, has derided those that dedicate themselves to caring too much about making the world a better place. And in that same way, much of EdgeTube, much of the commentary community, and much of the, drama community has this very South Park-esque, if you care so much about making the world a better place that you do something I perceive as cringe, then you're just as bad as... You're just worth making fun of and not taking seriously. And some would even treat people on the left with, like, sort of a aggressive response to that disagreement. But it goes even further than that. The left is in favor of not censorship, but deplatforming and TOS. Now, to be fair, everybody's in favor of TOS. It's just a matter of where you're willing to draw that arbitrary line. Most of these, like, EdgeTubers and whatnot, who say they don't like TOS and they don't like, deplatforming and they don't like there being rules against saying certain things because they're anti-censorship and they're free speech absolutists. Obviously, when it comes to pedophiles online that are advocating for, like, pedophile rights, quote-unquote, they will completely agree with me that that's somebody who deserves to be deplatformed and shut down from having access to public platforms. Because that's where they draw the line. And there may be a few other areas where they draw the line. Maybe they draw the line a little bit further, maybe a little further back. You never know. But everybody has a line where they think that a certain type of behavior should be banned from existing on a public platform. The problem is, much of EdgeTube relies on the ability to say things that are very politically incendiary for shock value, because that's where a lot of the humor comes from. If saying those things becomes restricted or bannable because you've got a bunch of neo-Nazis who are saying that but for real, and YouTube wants to crack down on that, then that affects them as well. And so in their view, they see the left advocating for platforms cracking down on Nazis and the far right as something that is going to result in strays hitting them. Which is why in so much of this cultural sort of, narrative, the drama community, commentary YouTubers, edgelord, like EdgeTube types, and the far right all tend to be on one side, and most people on the left tend to be on the other when these things crop up. That's my genuine analysis of these things. I don't think most of these YouTubers in the drama, commentary, or EdgeTube sphere are bad people. I don't think they're far right or anything. I think it's just there are top priorities they have that align with the right, but don't align with the left. And that's a big problem. Because sadly, there's a lot of people online who aren't Nazis that want to be able to say the N-word. And if the left says you're not allowed to say the N-word, then they're going to side with the right. But then again, a lot of people would say, well, if you're going to side with the right because you can't say the N-word, that's going to make you, then you're a Nazi, right? And I'd say, well, you got a point, you know? But at the same time, it's a very weird dichotomy, right?
It's super irresponsible and shitty. I am very insecure about my ability to create.
Yeah, to put it more simply, the left asks, or the left demands. The left doesn't ask. The left demands that you care a lot. The right, goads you and suggests that you care about certain things, kind of, but in a way that feels more fun. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, the right's not fighting real issues, right? Like, for example, when something happens that the right wants to turn into propaganda, they don't actually feel a strong, emotional connection to it. They don't inter-community police each other, for example. When that one trans guy shot up that Catholic school, if a gay nightclub got shot up by someone on the far right, which happens often, you're not going to see lefties making jokes and memes about it. Because engaging in discourse about it in a jokey, unserious way. But the right, even though they will simultaneously weaponize the tragedy, in private or even publicly in certain areas, they'll joke about it. Did you see them sharing around the videos of the body cam of the officer taking down the shooter? And the officer's walking past the dead bodies of children and shit, and they're watching the video cheering. Because it's not they don't see it as a tragic video of something having to happen. They see it as yeah, take down that word I can't say. They are genuinely, a lot of these people are genuinely just, they don't actually care about this stuff. They no right-winger's gonna say, hey, don't talk about this horrible tragedy in such a joking way to another right-winger who does that. But among the left, in a sort of parallel situation, there will be. The right doesn't actually care about these things, so they have free reign to engage in their rhetoric however they like. Whether it be coming off as concern trolling, whether it be just disaffected joking and hyper disregard of the tragedy, weaponizing it, and anything like that. They don't care. They only care about winning. That is their top priority. The left, broadly, actually cares about making the world a better place and maximizing human happiness, which means there's going to be inter-community policing.
Interesting content or entertain. It's gotten better over the years, but it's something that I have struggled with constantly. And it's one of the reasons why I, kept making this hurtful content. I ended up pivoting it into other things because I felt bad about it, innately. But it's still something that I struggle with, and I don't want you to interpret that as an excuse, but I hope that that is relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing. I'm not confident in my ability to entertain, and I think if I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success, and that is really hard to come to terms with.
I think this is true of a lot of people, and it's unfortunate, But in order to be the type of holy shit, this is hard self-crit, holy hell, well, it is definitely some hard-hitting self-criticism, but I think that's kind of necessary if you're trying to humanize yourself to an audience of people that have been told that you are basically not worth considering as human anymore. Just kind of based on the way that iDubbbz gets talked about and treated online, it kind of seems like that's the way people think of him. But he does have a little bit of a point, I guess. So I want to give some commentary about content creation, okay? When you make content, there are different types of content that you can make, all right? For example, iDubbbz nowadays focuses on making mostly documentary type content. This is like where he is sort of just acting as a conveyor of information and experience to you as the audience. The content's not really about him. If anything, it's about the thing or person he's doing a documentary about, right? Like the Ice Cream Man documentary or the Sam Hyde documentary. Those videos aren't about him. They're about the subject of the video that the documentary's about. Back in the day, when he made content, the videos weren't about him. They were about him doing and saying the most shocking thing he could possibly think of, pushing the bar and the limits of what was thought to be acceptable, even in the online space, with every single new video. Escalating it and escalating it. I mean, obviously, one of the best examples of this was the Cake series, right? Filthy Frank, iDubbbz, and Max Mofo. I believe Anything for Views might have joined too. I don't remember. Oh, and I think How To Basic was there as well for one of them. They made cakes. The first cake was vomit cake. So what they did, buckle in, guys. So what they did was they took Max Mofo, they got him down on his knees, and they had him look up at them, you know, just looking up, you know, what he sees kind of view, you know? And they put a funnel in his mouth, and they took sugar, flour, eggs, milk, I'm trying to remember what else, like some vanilla extract, all the stuff you need to make cake batter. And they shoved it down his gullet. Some water. And then they gagged him. They set off his gag reflex so that he would vomit out the mixed ingredients, kind of using his stomach as a mixer. And then they baked the cake. And then they ate it in a video. That was the first one, okay? One of my favorite videos from back when I was in middle school, I think. No, maybe, yeah. End of middle school, early high school. And then there was the sequel, okay? The sequel's even worse. Are you ready for the even worse sequel? They dialed it up even further. I'm losing viewers, I love that. They dialed it up even further. They did hair cake, where they shaved iDubbbz's head and put all the hair into the cake batter, mixed it in, and made a hair cake, and then ate it, and continued to vomit profusely all over the table where they were eating it. These videos are all obviously very restricted by YouTube. And then there's the final video, People Cake, where they harvested, like, PewDiePie's ass hair, or ball hair or something, JonTron's toenails, some like snot from another YouTuber, just a bunch of horrible bodily fluids, mixed that into a cake and then ate that. You guys don't understand if you weren't there to witness this era of YouTube. These videos had millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of views. Okay? Yeah, Vsauce's spit, Vsauce Michael's spit, was one of the ingredients. You do not even know if you weren't around. I can tell how many of you in chat have no idea what that era of the internet was like by your reactions to what I'm describing right now. Because you should already know about this if you have a whole like understanding of like why so many of like my group of like Zoomer generation were radicalized to the right in like the 2014 to 2016 Gamergate era. It's because outside of political content, that was what was most popular in that generation. I was there. I just specifically avoided those videos, Lamau. That might have been smart for you. I watched those videos with my grandma. Me and my grandma would binge watch those videos. I showed her Filthy Frank. She loved those videos. She was awesome.
I was being very bigoted in a lot of my videos, and I justified it because, I didn't think it was too serious. And I thought that people were going to see that I had good intentions, but that's so silly, Casual racism is still racism. Casual bigotry is still bigotry. And, I said a lot of things that I look back at and I cringe now, and I'm like, that is an awful thing to say. It doesn't matter what my intentions are. Like, if I'm hurting people, I'm hurting people. And, who the fuck knows what my intentions are? Like, sarcasm and, jokiness and jokey tone only goes so far, especially over the internet. Even in real life, that's, an impossible thing to know with 100% certainty. I've just always had this dumb philosophy that I'm not responsible for, my audience and how they behave beyond what...
They're going to get mad at him about this. Another common agreement. So, the far right necessarily needs to separate themselves, like far-right public figures that use their platforms to basically spread the hate that is intended to result in violence, are doing something called stochastic terrorism. This is basically when you spread rhetoric that can only realistically lead to violence, and in some cases they outright call for violence, to be fair, but in sort of a vague way, and violence happens, and it can even be attributed to that person. In many cases it is, like the Christchurch shooter, but necessarily the right or the larger public figures in the right need to separate themselves from these terrorists. They have to make it seem like these terrorists are just lone wolves, despite the fact that far-right terrorism dwarfs left-wing terrorism by a fuck ton, and the vast majority of left-wing terrorism that does happen is destruction of property, not destruction of people. That said, though, that aside, the right necessarily needs to separate the behavior of their audience from them in order to avoid responsibility for the violent criminal actions that typically far-right people fantasize about engaging in, right? EdgeTubers, commentary YouTubers, and drama YouTubers need to separate themselves from their audience in regards to their impact on what their audience does, because if they cover some drama and the YouTuber they cover ends up having, that drama YouTuber's audience go and harass them, and it's agreed upon by a lot of people to be a bad thing, they want to have the constantly running excuse of, well, I can't control my audience. Or if someone in their audience does something really fucked up, emulating them, they want to be able to say, I can't control my audience. And that is exactly what iDubbbz is doing. It's also a similarity that sort of EdgeTube crowd has with the right, and another reason why they tend to agree on some of the most core issues that matter in online discourse. Not in the real world, but in online discourse, these issues are the ones that matter most.
Content I put out, and that's stupid, and it's led to a lot of hate and a lot of bad outcomes. And I just want to make it clear that I am absolutely responsible for my audience. And I guess if you want to, look out for people who are red flags, it's definitely people who had my mentality that say, I'm not responsible for what my audience does. I know that this apology isn't enough. I've clearly done a lot of damage. These videos have been up for a long time and have accumulated millions of views. I shouldn't be able to just make an apology video and walk away from it. This is something that I should live the rest of my life with, and I expect to. I've profited off of this bigoted content for years, and I've made a successful...
He's gonna get so much shit for this, but I do think it's still a good thing in the end that he made this video. Because, there are still certainly iDubbbz fans that stuck around, that are EdgeTube, adjacent, and definitely consume EdgeTube content, but still stick around to watch iDubbbz because they still enjoy his stuff. And I feel like introducing a bit of sincerity that is very lacking on that side of YouTube into to an audience like that maybe doesn't see it very often because it's kind of demonized in that part of the internet, because showing sincerity is seen as showing weakness. I think it could help to potentially move people.
Full career out of it, and that's not right. I think that this is only a step in the right direction, and I know that a lot more needs to be done to even approach a life that I would think would be like acceptable. I am running ads on this video, and any revenue generated from this video I'm going to match and donate to an organization that would have been particularly affected by the type of rhetoric that I've been spewing on this channel. And again, this isn't the end of what I'm doing. This is just the start. I don't feel like a lot of this content represents me as a person, at least not anymore. There was a time where it probably perfectly represented me because I was a nasty, apathetic, insecure person. Now that I don't feel like it represents me and I want to distance myself from it and keep it from, indoctrinating more people, I'd like to unlist the videos so that people, can access them still for whatever, purposes they might want to do that for. But it's not being proliferated on the website. I feel like that's...
For those that don't know, when a video's unlisted, there's no way for it to, appear in your recommended or to find it by searching it. You have to have... It has to either be on a playlist that's public. In that case, you can see unlisted stuff. Or you have to have a direct link to it. So the links will still be, available. You'll still be able to find the video and pull, the content from there. But as far as them being an outlet for gaining views, subs, likes, monetary gain, or anything like that, that will now be literally impossible unless, a bunch of iDubbbz superfans decide to, click the link every day, watch the video, and keep on, funneling ad revenue to it. But he might even turn off the ads on him.
That's the best solution, at least for the time being. And for anyone who liked those videos, I want this video to be an example and a lesson for you. You can like content, but you can also think that it's irresponsible and it's hurting other people. So
this level of sincerity will bounce off of the head of most people in the EdgeTube and commentary sphere, I feel. I think that appealing to sincerity and sympathy, or empathy, is very, very hard to do when a lot of the internet considers showing compassion as weakness.
Well, just tap into that part of your brain that's saying oh, okay, it's probably not that important that this video stays online because truthfully, I've seen it, I've experienced the content, but it's done a lot of damage. We can just let it go. I'm sorry to everyone that I made content cop videos on. I still don't like the majority of you, and that's fine, but I can recognize that you did not deserve the hate and harassment that I sent your way.
To be fair, honestly, his content cop videos I think were pretty good, but they did contribute a lot to the state of turning YouTube into the kind of place centered around call-outs and dunks. YouTube used to be a pretty friendly community when I was growing up watching it. There was the occasional drama, but it was dealt with quickly and people just didn't care about it. It just wasn't... It wasn't as big, drama online. Obviously used to be friendly. No, I think that the YouTube community among creators used to be a lot more friendly. Before the blow up of Keemstar and Drama Alert, which was parallel to the blow up of iDubbbz, the drama community, the EdgeTube sphere, Gamergate started around that time. I feel like there was a very distinct difference in the level of prevalent toxicity in the general sphere of content creators. I feel like content creators were more inclined to be friendly with each other and try to hash out disagreements privately, ideally. And I feel like there was less political shit going on. A large part of this is that it used to be, unless you were making distinctively political content, there was a rule that you just don't talk about politics or religion in your videos, particularly if you did like gaming videos, for example. If you give your takes on politics or religion, you divide your audience and you alienate some percentage of your audience. So it was seen as very taboo to even talk about politics unless you made your career on politics. And so because of that, if you were going to talk politics, your content had to be politics, generally speaking. And I feel like there was just less politics content back then, and less politics means less drama, and just less toxicity and fighting.
Particularly want to apologize to Tana. Tana, I'm sorry. I should have never made that video. I harassed Tana in person.
That was a bit fucked up,
then
yeah.
harassed her online. And that's...
For those that don't know, basically what had happened was Tana Mongoose was kind of a cringy TikToker, but that's really the most she ever did. That was like genuinely bad as far as content creation goes. I believe at the time that this happened, she was like 21 years old, and iDubbbz, like a clip of iDubbbz saying the N-word and the F-slur, like came up in one of her streams. Not TikTok or any. TikTok didn't exist back then. It was the equivalent of TikTok back then, like Vine or whatever. She ended up seeing a clip of iDubbbz saying slurs, criticized him for it, saying it's bigoted, fair and all that, very fair. No, Tana recorded a dead body like Logan did. That was after the content cop. That would have been brought up in the content cop. That I did not hear about, but that would have been after the content cop. But iDubbbz, in his response to Tana, most of his videos like defending the concept of saying those slurs, which he doesn't agree with anymore. But one of the core arguments he makes is that Tana, who was 21 at the time, when she was like 17 or something, in an old video, was saying the N-word with the soft A, and that sort of white girl who thinks she can do that kind of way. You can tell she probably dropped that. I would hope dropped that habit quickly. But it seemed like I don't think that then using that as justification to go to her in person and then scream the N-word at an event she's doing where most of the people in line going to see her are a bunch of like teenage girls and little girls and like kids. Like they're just all a bunch of like little girls going to see like this fucking like makeup drama story time YouTuber, and then iDubbbz goes and he yells out the N-word. It was funny at the time, as I remember it, but the more I think about it as I've gotten older, it's like that was fucked up. I don't think I would be okay nowadays seeing somebody do that exact thing. I don't think that would fly with me now. Geez, iDubbbz. Yeah, this was back in like 2016, to be fair, and that's what he is criticizing now. When he says he made content that hurt people and was moving like his audience into believing really fucked up stuff, that's the content he's talking about. Tana was just as bad. Hopefully she matured. Was she just as bad as iDubbbz? I mean, it seems like she was definitely saying slurs, but I don't think that justifies what iDubbbz did, is my argument. It was funny at the time, but I think with a more adult mindset, it aged poorly.
Deplorable behavior. It's so stupid. I'm also sorry to all the black viewers and minority groups who had to put up with that video and put up with, the phrases. I said either it's all okay or none of it's okay. And that's just so dangerous and stupid. I have made content that I'm proud.
That was his take on slurs. Like, okay, either all slurs are okay to say or no slurs are okay to say. Ever. Like, if like black people can say the N-word with the soft A sometimes, then white people should be able to say it. And if that's okay, then all slurs should be okay. Very stupid, reductive 2016 YouTube era take that obviously he no longer agrees with now, and he disagrees with it today. Wasn't that Destiny's take? I don't think so.
Proud of over the years.
I'm pretty certain it's not. I mean, in private, I think that might be his position.
It hasn't been as consistent as maybe I'd like it to have been, but there is a lot of content that I think had a net positive on the world, and I'm going to strive to continue on that trend. But again, I'm absolutely going to continue to make mistakes, but I want the mistakes to be a lot smaller and a lot less serious. I also want to give some clarity to the post-fight speech that I gave. I mean, it wasn't a speech. It was a phrase. I was like,
I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I really do appreciate the support. And
dude, people gave iDubbbz shit for crying while he was doing like the thank you to the audience after the boxing match, but it's like, and I know that like obviously if you're a guy and you cry, you're gonna be seen as a bitch, but like I really want you to think about how emotional it's got to be like a guy who started making videos at his computer like a decade ago, maybe more, just doing like the most vile shit you can imagine. Like this guy put his body through the ringer for his old content. One of the most commonly running jokes back in the day in his comment sections were like, how is this guy going to like live to 40 at this rate, doing the things to himself that he does and doing the content that he does, right? There were a lot of jokes about how he wasn't going to live that long because of what he was doing. And now that he's stopped doing that kind of stuff, people are mad, which I do find funny. Regardless, though, I want you to imagine you start out making content like that. You grow, you grow, you grow, you grow, you get married, you're building your life up, and now you're standing in the middle of a massive stadium. And I think it was either Tampa or Orlando. I think it was Tampa, my neck of the woods in Florida. Surrounded by like companies, like big like people and big like signs that are like big companies sponsoring your event, like big fucking crowd of people. Boxing event that you organized and put together. This is the second one. Big YouTubers and other big personalities are there. Like, it's an emotional moment, you know? Like, I'd have a hard time not tearing up with joy. Like, I will say, the first time I touched a titty, I actually, like, I had one of my eyes, like, start to water with, like, joy tears. I'm not kidding. I had to, like, suppress it. Because I didn't want to have to explain that. But the first, like, when I lost my virginity and I got to, like, hold a titty for the first time, I just kind of, like, I remember just turning and looking out the window of the car and just looking out at, like, the trees and just almost having, like, a little bit of watering happening in my eye and, like, a twitch of, like, trying to suppress, like, a giant grin, like, just, like, that twitch smile. That, like, I feel like I would be overwhelmed with emotion in his place. It was in a car. Has it been too long since I told the story of how I lost my virginity?
Thank you for coming.
That was addressing the people over the years that I neglected and I left behind. The people whose feelings I, didn't take into consideration. Those are the people who I was addressing as, I know I'm not everyone's cup.
Just don't cry afterward, it's awkward. No, it was whenever she took off her shirt and I got to touch the titty for the first time. I just looked off, like, stoically into the horizon, like... Most beautiful moment of my life. It's like looking at the Grand Canyon for the first time.
Cup of tea. Anyone who thinks that I should be shouting the N-word from the rooftops, I don't want to be your cup of tea. Now I want to talk about events and situations that have happened over the past 5 years of my life that have led me to the place I'm at now. One year I was at a convention and a bunch of fans were, wanting pictures, and this particular fan came up to me and said, I know you probably don't like transgender people, but can I, get a picture? That smacked me in the face. I was like, oh, holy shit. Why would you think that? But I mean, it was fairly obvious. I was being cruel, hateful, bigoted, and being very uncaring about people.
It's interesting because I've seen people in like the drama and EdgeTube sphere have similar interactions where like they'll have a trans fan and they'll be like in their replies like, hey, I'm trans. I hope that doesn't mean you like dislike me, like you hate this other trans content creator because whatever reason, right? And they'll be like, what do you mean? I'm not transphobic. I just hate these trans content creators that like most of the prominent trans content creators online for political reasons and political disagreements. And yeah, it's very reasonable to get that impression that like, yeah, maybe like I feel that a lot of like left tubers get shit for presuming these content creators might be like a little bigoted towards certain marginalized groups. But people in their audience that are part of those marginalized groups feel the same way. They feel like maybe their favorite content creator, whatever content creator they're watching, doesn't like them very much. And I actually really like that iDubbbz is telling this story. I'm going to rewind it a bit so we can hear it in full.
Why would you think that? But I mean, it was fairly obvious. He came up to me and a bunch of fans were, wanting pictures. And this particular fan came up to me and said, I know you probably don't like transgender people, but can I, get a picture? That smacked me in the face. I was like, oh, holy shit. Why would you think that? But I mean, it was fairly obvious. I was being cruel, hateful, bigoted, and being very uncaring about people's feelings. That is a very fair assessment to make. I was giving this person bad vibes, and I think I've given a lot of people extremely bad vibes. Another event that was very important for me to experience,
I appreciate that, trans girl Laura,
was I went on a boxing podcast. I was basically like trying to walk back my Tana content cop. I was still very like insecure and uncomfortable with the fact that I made that video, and but I was still coping. You'll see me struggle in this clip to, say that it was wrong.
So I just wanted to let you talk on that, right? Because obviously using the N-word is definitely frowned upon by a lot of people, especially by a non-African American. But I was just curious.
That was a very weird video because I wanted to like criticize her for her like sort of flagrant use of it. I've been pretty flagrant about it too, not in the same way. I thought there was a message to be.
Oh yeah, there was that clip of her yelling the N-word with like a hard R, wasn't there? It was like years before, like when iDubbbz did all that, and it still doesn't justify what he did. But I just remembered, I remember there being the one clip where it looks like she's in a car, and she says the N-word with the soft A. But I'm now remembering where she screams angrily the N-word hard R as an insult. Yeah. Okay, I'm remembering that now. Okay, I remember why you guys said that she was worse than I remember. Okay, that just kind of, like, returned to me. My brain's still sort of, like, remembering what happened back then. My memory of the future is better than my memory of the past, okay? Give me a break.
To be shared there, and I don't think it was particularly... It was okay in criticizing her, but I think I probably wasn't the person to deliver the message, if that makes sense. There was a message that I was trying to put out there, and like, I'm not really the person to put out that message. I don't regret making the video. I think, there's bits and pieces to take from it that I think are valuable, but,
His
I probably
commentaries
wouldn't
is
make
still
it these
coping.
days. I'm very grateful to those guys and how they broached the subject because... it didn't put me on the defensive. It just made me realize, like, I'm stupid. I'm stupid, and I really need to, like, acknowledge these things. Like, what am I doing? I'm still trying to make excuses for myself and, like, why I made that video. It's like, it was a dumb idea. I harassed someone. I was saying slurs, and I was trying to justify it all. A very big thing that has sort of altered my view on all of this is just the amount of hate and harassment my wife Anissa has received over the years. She's had to deal with it from the beginning of our relationship, and I have done a horrible job at acknowledging her and her feelings for it. A lot of the time I just thought that was her problem, or that was other people's problem. Like, it's not my problem that you're getting hate and harassment. And it's like, no,
I like how people online call iDubbbz like a simp, like a simpering cuck simp who like is just this like dog on a leash for his woman. And meanwhile he's like, yeah, so for the longest time I used to think like, well, I mean, if they're giving you hate, I mean, we're not the same person. That's them giving you shit, that's not related to me, right? Like I like how like separated from reality the vast majority of internet gossip tends to be about content creators like this. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at, like, when I read hate comments about myself, and it's just like, I'm reading fan fiction that's just really outside of reality, it makes it clear how much filling in the blanks that these people do.
Problem, or that was, other people's problem. Like, it's not my problem that you're getting hate and harassment. And it's like, no, it absolutely is. That's the culture that I cultivated, and I, didn't do anything to change that. Over the years it's changed a little bit, but I don't think I've still fully acknowledged how responsible I am for the amount of harassment that Anissa has had to deal with. And this year I decided to speak more candidly and be more open about who I am as a person, and to speak on my life a little bit more. And I did that on Anthony Padilla's podcast. These are the people that
Dude, this podcast, the clip here that you're about to see is very, very reasonable. The way that, like, EdgeTube, the commentary community, the right that's been weaponizing this drama, framed it is wild to me. The idea that this indicates that iDubbbz, like, hates his old fans and is, like, a hypocritical asshole now. Just watch this clip and see how warped your mindset has to be inherently to even assess the video in that way.
I'm attracting. These are the people that I'm entertaining. Like, I need to reevaluate things. They're relating and enjoying this content for a reason, and that's not maybe the same reason that I'm trying to make. I had a very Wild West mentality when it came to online behavior. Like, people are going to do what they want to do. People are going to say what they want to say. And I can pretty much do the same because it's the internet. But I think you have to be a lot more responsible. If you guys are at all interested in how I've arrived here, that video gives, a good bit of context. And
I've thought about us, like, reacting to that for a while, but I don't think I want to, like, just tread over older drama-related stuff. I feel like when it's current and relevant to politics, because a lot of people have been getting, like, mad at me lately for drama content for some reason, even though it does really well and brings in a lot of new people. It's like, why are you getting mad at me for this if it's doing so well? Why are you mad? The reason why I cover drama content, the reason why I infiltrated the drama community, is that I feel that a lot of the internet discourse and drama that happens outside of the politics sphere has slightly political undertones and motivations in it, and I like to be able to, like, oversee it and call it out. Like, this drama is not overtly political. The average political pundit would not look at this and feel like they can derive a political position or a political evaluation that they can draw from it. But understanding the context of this and having a politically sort of framed mindset allows you to see how much people's political biases are impacting literally all of this discourse. And it's why I cover this kind of stuff, because there's very clearly political undertones to all of this.
Talks about some of my life a little bit. There is a clip from this interview that's been floating around the internet, and it's me calling my fans antisocial and basement dwellers, and I was like, I didn't like, interacting with my fans. I just want to be clear, like, that was my realization. I think a lot of people are like, of course that happened, is because you were creating that culture and you were attracting those people. And it's like, yes, I know. I know now. I didn't know before. It was my realization upon meeting more and more fans that I was like, oh shit, you guys are struggling. It was easy for me to identify them struggling when they were outside of my body. But the antisocial basement dwelling incel that was inside here, I couldn't acknowledge that. I couldn't recognize that. So I needed the mirror to be held up to me. In closing, I want to say that I have always thought that I was an empathetic person, because I thought, well, I get angry, I get sad, of course I got empathy. Seems easy, right? Empathy? I definitely have that. There were moments where, like, a dog...
God, he is absolutely hitting the nail on the head here. How many guys have you heard me talk... How many times have you guys heard me say, the right views empathy as a sin? And unfortunately, a lot of young, like, Gen Z teens literally haven't developed empathy yet. So what political group do you think they're going to be more prone to gravitate towards if they're looking to rebel online? They haven't developed empathy. They think it's gay. You know? The right sees empathy as basically sinful in their rhetoric. Yeah, I've got multiple people in chat saying they've got friends or family members that are literally exactly what I'm describing right now. A lot of people, particularly if you're like a teenager, you think you know what empathy is, but you don't actually know empathy until you felt it. And most people don't truly feel empathy until like their brain develops quite a bit further, like into their 20s, and it just kind of hits you one day. Like, can I tell you what happened when I developed empathy? I was watching Lord of the Rings, movie I'd seen a million times, and just all of a sudden, the thought hit me out of nowhere. How would it feel to be one of those Gondorian soldiers getting, like, bombarded with, like, decapitated heads from the Gondorian charge that happened, like, earlier? I never thought about it that way before watching the movie, like at 22, 23 years old, like on my 500th rewatch. And I was like, fuck, that would be really fucked up. And I start thinking about it like very in depth from the perspective of those soldiers, and it just starts to overwhelm me with like a feeling of dread, and I have to like snap myself out of it. And I start doing that a lot more when I watch movies or hear a story about like a really bad situation someone is in. And that just really wasn't something that happened till I like hit 22 maybe. And yeah, it is pretty agreed upon in psychology that a lot of people, a lot of guys in particular, because male brain development tends to be a bit slower than female brain development, don't really develop that level of empathy until, you know, early 20s.
Dog would die in a film and I'd cry. So it's like, of course I have empathy. But I never did. I think only in these past couple of years.
I see empathy as the ability to truly put yourself into somebody's shoes in regards to sort of a hypothetical in your mind. Like, you can imagine what something would be like in sort of a daydream-esque way, but you can't truly imagine, like, you can't imagine what emotions you would feel until you've, like, gotten to a certain age. Maybe it's life experience, maybe it's brain development, I truly don't know. But I feel like you just truly can't imagine what kind of emotions you'd feel in someone else's situation until you reach a certain age or level of development.
Have I gained the ability empathy, and I'm very ashamed to admit that. It sounds really pathetic to say at the age of 32 I've acquired empathy, but I have, and I've realized it because I just like can't help myself but like feel for other people's pain and suffering now. I'm still not perfect. I think that is my empathy meter's only maybe like a quarter of the way filled up, potentially, but it's at least there. And I just want you guys to know that you can unlock
Oh yeah, a lot older people still haven't learned empathy, and as I said, most right-wing pundits view the concept of that as a sin, practically. But yeah, I mean, my point still stands that, like, generally speaking, and especially because, you know, the Zoomers are, you know, way more progressive than previous generations, I think the idea of empathy being a valuable trait is something that gets more and more popular, like among young people, even before they develop it, right? Like, do you really think the like most young, like, white Zoomers aren't racist? And most of them think saying the N-word, like, in a racist way is bad, even though they can't necessarily empathize with what it would be like to be black and get called the N-word by a white racist, or even by, like, a white friend who thinks they're being funny, right? They can't truly empathize with it, but they understand that it's bad. But eventually, you know, life experience, witnessing certain things, further brain development, etc., they might start to actually empathize with what that's actually like, but in terms of emotion, experience, the context of it, you know, the lead up, the reasons behind it, etc. And I think that's a very different perspective. There's a difference between, like, knowing something's bad because you were taught and, like, you know it's bad just sort of intuitively in that way, and understanding why something is bad. And I think that's the big difference. knowing something is bad is different from understanding why something is bad. Truly.
Ability, empathy, if you experience more life. It might take you getting hurt a little bit, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. So thank you for watching, everyone. I do want to create more regular content.
Not a bad video.
I don't want to just have the next 5 videos be apologies. So I have uploaded a squirrel video on my second channel. If you want to watch that.
This video's
I guess
pretty
as one final thing, I just want to thank everyone who's given me the space and the compassion to grow as a person, because it's taken longer than it probably should have. I appreciate everyone, and I think most importantly, I appreciate my wife, Anissa. She has been insanely compassionate and helpful and patient in allowing me to grow over the years, and has legitimately encouraged me to be a better person, and not a better person in just like the iDubbbz becoming woke kind of way. She was the one who said that I should try this boxing thing. I would have never done that on my own because I was insecure and I was pathetic. I did this, and I am so glad I did. It's been amazing. So, Anissa, I love you. You're amazing. Right now you're streaming, but...
Oh, people are going to call him a simp and a cuck for that. Okay, let me tell you what the reaction to this video is going to be. Almost all negative from the drama and commentary sphere. I am very curious to see... very curious to see what response is already coming out. You've even got Boogie jumping on the hate train. Y'all think the beating Jordy gave me was bad? Check out the beating iDubbbz is giving to his career. Watching this video, I feel so bad for this guy. He has lost all his self-confidence. He has lost all his self-respect. He is losing his audience. He is losing his career. I walked a similar path and I hated the results. I hope he gets better. Are you fucking serious, dude? Dude gets like a day, 2 days of being in the spotlight in a positive way, and now he's like jumping on board with the same people that were shitting on him literally a week ago, who were shitting on him as the fight was happening. Look at this fool with his empathy. Yeah, Boogie's gonna walk that back and apologize, probably, because that's what Boogie does. Wavy Web Surf says, this is so painful. Nicholas Diorio, this is fucking hilarious. He's using all the buzzwords. Let's see what else we have. Boogie once again. In my humble opinion, I just miss the old iDubbbz, not the negative stuff or the slurs. Never liked that stuff. I miss him eating pickles in sewers. I miss him filming with friends. I miss him filming on trail cams. I want him to have fun again and share that fun with his audience. Dude's doing boxing events. Is that not like sharing fun with his audience? 32 is the wall for YouTubers. After they hit 32, it's all downhill. I'm just scrolling through my timeline, by the way. I'm not like, I didn't search anything like about this video. I just knew that if I go to my timeline, I will be inundated with the drama and like edge and commentary YouTubers that I follow, all posting their takes and freaking out over the video. So that was a Nicholas Diorio take. We've got Augie who says, iDubbbz has unlisted every content cop. Quote-unquote casual bigotry is still bigotry. LMFAO. Shitting on Tipster for agreeing with the video. What else we got? Augie once again. Content Deputy just came out. That's about what I expected. Oh, here's Boblax's take. iDubbbz's new video kind of made me feel bad for the guy. Maybe he's manipulating me, but hearing about his self-esteem issues is just sad. Maybe his bad actions are him lashing out because of insecurity instead of being malicious. The bad actions is like not saying the N-word and growing as a person. I'll forgive him if he apologizes to Froggy. If he's truly just growing as a person 15 years too late, I expect him to realize his Froggy video was super unfair to Froggy and apologize, plus delete/unlist the video on him. Ah, yes, Froggy, who is making, like, misogynistic jokes about his wife. He needs to apologize to that guy. Until then, I'm still going to be anti-iDubbbz. Yep, about exactly the response you would expect. Remember, guys, that's the big thing that kind of draws together the right and EdgeTube. It's not political agreement necessarily, or like alignment on core values. It's the fact that both sides see sincerity as sort of cringe. Both sides see the idea of policing platforms and speech as cringe. And they have these opinions for different reasons, but they still hold the same opinions. And that's where the alignment comes in. And that's why it always feels like, as far as online internet culture, the left will always, at least for now, be fighting an uphill battle.